not just this summer, but in January as well, they've spent £295 million all year so far. Rodri's back in the team. The signings they've made they've not been the usual Man City signings in the sense that in the past they would always go for the top shelf, the top tier signings. They used to do what Liverpool have done. They go for the best players. We know they missed out on Florian Wirtz, but Pep Guardiola said there's still business to be done. So how do you rate their business so far? Big spending, a lot of players that have got a lot to prove. What would you make of it?
I mean, I thought they did well to get the signings over the line in time for the Club World Cup, and they made a really clear distinction. I've said this before on an episode on the Club World Cup, that City kind of viewed the Club World Cup as the start of their season, not the end of it, and they wanted players in. They wanted to have them all together in that training base in Miami, to get that kind of camaraderie, to kind of understand each other, for Pep to get time to work with them on the training pitch. They're doing sort of big long sessions at Lynn University in Boca Raton. So I thought they did well to get the deals that they wanted over the line relatively quickly. I was impressed with Aït-Nouri at the Club World Cup. I thought that he was particularly good going forward. Everyone will know, how good he is from watching Wolves last season. He offers, goals and assists from left back. It's been a while since City have had a recognised left back, and it did look different with, an attacking left back in that position. Reinders, I think, will be key to what City want to do next season. They didn't really have a lot of legs in midfield last year. They looked kind of slow and sluggish, particularly without Rodri. And Reinders, in theory, will be that kind of box-to-box between Rodri and maybe another one of those attacking midfielders, whether it's Foden or Shirky or someone else. There probably is still business to be done. The position that they could do with strengthening is at right back. Obviously, Kyle Walker's gone. They've got Rico Lewis, who kind of fell out of favour a little bit last season, and they've got bit part players the likes of Akanji who can play there, Mateus Nunes, who's obviously a midfielder but can play there. There has been speculation about a right back, but nothing really kind of concrete. And now they've got an issue with the goalkeeper. We spoke to Edison in America at the Club World Cup, and he was adamant that he was staying, but the speculation around his future just hasn't gone away, whether it's Saudi or now Galatasaray. City, I think, don't really want to make a change in that position, but if they have to make a change, if one of Ortega or Edison goes, they are looking at the likes of Diogo Costa at Porto and James Trafford at Burnley, obviously a player that they know really well, having come through their academy system. So there may be tweaks to their squad between now and the end of the transfer window. I wouldn't expect anything major, because they've done, you've just said there, they did the major business in January and before the Club World Cup. So the squad as it is now will be the bulk of the squad going forward next season. There could still be the odd tweak here or there. With City, again, you never know. I mean, I remember a couple of summers ago, City sort of saying, we're done, we're not going to do anything else. And then 2 days later, Manuel Akanji walked through the door. So with City, you never know.
Beth, I mean, obviously Liverpool are the champions now, and over the years they've had so many battles with Man City, but do you sense that they see City as their prime rivals, or do you think Arsenal have now become the number one rivals?
I think, despite how they sort of fell off a little bit last season, it would be naive to not look at City as the main threat, because they are a force. They obviously won 4 titles on the bounce before last season. So I think they probably view them equally as Arsenal, I would say. I think City have that guile and that know-how that Arsenal don't quite yet have. So it'll be interesting. I think I'm interested by City next season, because I think they've done some smart business. I think Aït-Nouri, as Rob said, he's a player that I've really liked at Wolves. I wouldn't have minded Liverpool going for him. So I think he's a great player. I think they've done well in the market, but they've lost a little bit of that aura that they had a couple of years ago, where you just sort of felt like, how are you going to get at this City team? How are you going to stop them from going on and winning the league? So I think there's sort of less mystique about them. They're still a very, very good team, but they're not, the formidable side that they were a couple of years back. So I'd say they're probably maybe on a par with Arsenal, and probably a lot of that as well depends on what Arsenal do in the market between now and the end of the transfer window. Obviously, looks like Gyökeres is going to come in. But I still think that Arsenal are maybe 1 or 2 players off being champions, but who knows? I could be completely wrong.
Rob, just to finish out on Man City, we know that Jack Grealish is surplus to requirements. Pep's made that pretty clear, but big fee, big wages, big reputation. I think he's 29 now. So who's going to pick up Jack Grealish? Because it will cost a tab to sign him from Man City.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think the fact that he's still a Man City player tells you everything about how difficult it is for him to get a move somewhere. You know, he has got time left on his contract. I think he's got 2 years left on his contract. He's on big wages. You know, they've been linked with the likes of Everton and West Ham, but you know, if they were to move for someone like Grealish, you're talking about smashing the wage structure for possibly a 1 year loan, which just that kind of thing just doesn't go down well in dressing rooms. I wouldn't be surprised if Jack Grealish ends up back at City. I think Pep Guardiola has managed that situation in a different way to the way that Ruben Amorim has managed the, you know, Rashford or Garnacho at Man United, in that from right at the start, when we saw him at the Club World Cup, the first question of the first press conference was obviously about Grealish because he wasn't there. He left the door open for him to come back. Now, you know, if you look at that situation, it's really, really clear that Pep doesn't really want him at City anymore, that he wants him to move on. But he left the door open. He said that, you know, if a move doesn't materialise, he's more than welcome to come back. He still has a future at City, or a possible future at City. We're told that once they start training or return for pre-season training after their break, that he will be allowed to train with the squad if he's still at the club, which is different to that with the way that Amorim has handled Rashford and Garnacho. I don't think there's any problem really with Grealish in terms of the personality in the dressing room, because he's really well liked in that dressing room. I don't think the players would mind having him back. I think really it's simply that if Grealish wants to play week in, week out and wants to get in the England squad ahead of the World Cup, he needs to find a move away, because Pep has been quite clear that he just doesn't feel that Jack has got the consistency to play Saturday, Wednesday, like he did at the end of the treble season. So it's an interesting one. I don't think that there's an obvious place for Grealish to go, unless you end up going to somewhere like say Bayern Munich don't get Diaz and they're looking for someone who can play on the left hand side, and they end up going for Grealish. Obviously a completely different player, but he could do that job. Unless Grealish wants to accept a West Ham or an Everton and take a pay cut and go for a year on loan,